A lot of you may know me for this, which is my professional brand. You might know me as that girl who started her own company, or that girl who became CEO to help a tech company here turn around during a time of pivot, or that girl who's really focused on furthering diversity in the workplace. But what you probably don't know, though, is the story of my personal brand. My personal brand isn't as shiny or pretty or fun as my professional brand. And in a lot of ways, my personal brand looks a whole lot more like loss than it does wins. But it was through this loss and a series of events over a very short period of time that I'm going to tell you that I was able to accomplish a lot of what you saw on that first slide. So it all started in 2008. I was cooking and glass happened to fall and shatter on top of my foot, severing my tendons. I had to go into surgery to reattach my tendons, and after surgery, the doctors let me know that it was very unlikely I would ever be able to run or even wear high heels again. It was a really long road of physical therapy and pain management. While I was recovering, my grandfather passed away. A few months after that, my husband, we were actually dating at the time, his mom passed away suddenly and tragically. Not even a year later, we were actually in the middle of planning our wedding when his little brother then died tragically and suddenly. In the midst of all of this, I started battling some sort of kidney disorder. It put me in the hospital several times a year. This last time was actually not too long ago. It almost became a blood infection, which would give me a 50-50 shot at living. It's honestly something I'm still battling with, and they so far have given me no known cause or cure. As you can imagine, at this point, my family, we're tired of funerals and we're tired of health issues, but life wasn't quite done. It was a fall day, much like today. My husband and I were outside cleaning when we got a call that my baby cousin, just 21 at the time and the only child to my aunt and uncle, was found dead. We soon discovered that he had actually been murdered in a horrific, mind-numbing crime. To say that we went through difficulties can't even begin to express or cover what we went through, and this is honestly just scratching the surface, and it was all in a very, very short period of time. Needless to say, I went into a tailspin of pain and darkness and fear. Now, on the outside, you would have seen me and you might have no idea what I was struggling with, but I was stuffing it all, trying to pretend everything was okay, but it wasn't. And I realized, though, at a certain point of living and existing in this brand of difficulty, that I wasn't chasing after the dreams that I once had for myself. I wasn't taking action anymore, so I knew something had to change. There's this quote by Henry David Thoreau that says, "The price of anything is the amount of life you're willing to exchange for it." That is really powerful. And I decided I wasn't willing to pay any more for a life direction that I didn't want. So I decided to change. By the grace of God, I decided to move forward and redefine my brand. And you know, we all will go through pain and loss if you haven't already. And maybe your story already looks a whole lot like mine. But we all get to decide who we will be afterwards. And it was through this process that I discovered 3 things that really helped change my life. And the first one is this: guard your self-talk. This seems strange, but we all, especially us women, have a constant conversation in our heads to and about ourselves. Unfortunately, the content of this dialogue is not always so positive. In fact, research shows that about 77% of our self-talk is extremely negative in nature. I definitely fell into that bucket. My self-talk was full of fear and pain and anxiety. It told me I couldn't succeed, that I was an imposter, that I was dirty or guilty, that worst of all, it told me to keep hiding, and that pain would forever be my story. But this kind of self-talk is dangerous. There's this famous psychiatrist, his name is Nathaniel Brendan, and he says, there is no factor more important in a person's psychological development than the value judgments he places on himself. Why is that? Because often our self-image dictates who we will be and what we can achieve in the future. I was reading this John Maxwell book, and 15 Laws of Growth, and in it he says that by the time we're 17, this is crazy, by the time we're 17, we've heard the words, "no, you can't," an average of 150,000 times. We've heard the words, "yes, you can," only about 5,000. That is 30 no's for every yes. If you combine that with the negative self-talk we continuously feed ourselves, that makes for a very powerful belief of I can't. It really wasn't until I started changing the way that I spoke to myself and intentionally adjusting the content of my thoughts that I could really start healing and really start growing. And it's easier said than done. I remember when I was doing this, I actually had a journal next to my bed, and every night I would write 3 things that I was grateful for, because gratitude goes a really long way in changing our mindset. But then I would also write truth about myself. I am successful, I am driven, I am capable. And over time, those truths started to overshadow all of that negative self-talk that I was feeding myself. Now it'll creep back up every once in a while, and when this happens, my husband pretty immediately responds with, "Hey, stop being mean to my wife." It's funny, but it does. It serves as a very powerful reminder that we've got to stop being our own worst bullies. What is the content of your self-talk? Is it encouraging? Is it lifting you up? Is it driving you to a better future? Or is it negative and cutting you down? And if it's the latter, then I encourage you to change that today, because it is really hard to make a difference if we're telling ourselves that we can't or it doesn't matter. Which leads me to my second point. Don't let fear keep you from moving forward. We all struggle with fears, and I don't just mean fear of snakes and spiders. I mean, at the core of us, each of us battles our own inner fears. Maybe yours looks like fear your expectations will never be met, fear of what others think, fear of failure, fear of loss, or maybe you're afraid that they were all right when they said that you can't. No matter what your fears, every single one of them, they serve as an obstacle to living our life fully. I realized that I was letting my fears keep me from taking action on all these dreams and ideas that I once had. So I leaned into them. What was it that I was so afraid of? What was it that was keeping me from really moving forward? And I discovered something. There's this quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it says, this is funny, "No matter what path you choose, there will always be someone telling you that you're wrong." Isn't that the truth? And I realized, I was letting fear of what other people thought keep me from moving forward in my life. I didn't want people to know about my pain. I didn't want them to know about my loss. I didn't want them to know about my struggles or my dreams or my fears. And because of that, I was stuck and I wasn't taking action. But then it hit me. The truth is that the failure to act is going to be a more tragic loss than experiencing a degree of failure while trying to bring something to life. We so often let our fears keep us from innovating and building and creating, but what if the greatest loss of them all is that we never actually start? There's this poem that I love, and it says, "For all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest of these is it might have been." When we're old and we're looking back on our life and our legacy, we won't be able to change the pain that we experienced. But don't you want to say that you didn't let fears keep you from living the life that you knew that you could? That you didn't let other people put caps or ceilings on what you could achieve? I realized that I didn't want to fall into that bucket, and so I started taking action. And you know what? I don't think that we're afraid of failure. I mean, how many of us have failed in the privacy of our own home, swept it under the rug, and then moved about our day? We all have. I think what we're afraid of is that other people are going to find out about our failures. They're going to find out about our shortcomings. But man, once we can break free of those bonds and move forward without fear of what we all think of each other and without fears of taking those risks or fear of loss, then we are truly capable of remarkable things. Which brings me to my last lesson, which is keep learning and start moving. And I could say find support and start moving. When I was going through that really hard time of pain in my life, I knew that I couldn't do it alone. And so I reached out to some really amazing people, and they helped me and redirect me, and it changed my life. So I thought, as I was venturing down this professional career and putting my head down and starting to take action and redefining my brand, if they could help me in my personal life, then what could support do in my professional life? So I was on a mission to find the smartest, wisest, most capable, successful people that I could find and surround myself with them. And suddenly I wasn't alone in my work anymore. I had a city supporting me, and it was and has been amazing. But that's a decision that we have to make for ourselves. We have to seek wisdom, we have to pursue growth, and we have to decide that we are going to start taking action. All right, I have a question for you. How many of you here have dreams or ideas for a better future? I know I do, yes. How many of you are actively, unabashedly pursuing them? Awesome. See, that's so good. And I think I have an idea that there are probably a few more dreams and ideas in this room than there are plans to achieve them. And why is that? Now, we can blame it on the self-talk. We can blame it on the fears that we just talked about. But I think that there's one more reason. And it's this awful little word that I call later. We'll get to that later. We'll start someday. We'll get to that tomorrow. But later, that word is a death sentence to our dreams. And the more we tell ourselves later, the less likely we are to ever actually start. So we've got to stop telling ourselves later and actually decide that no one is going to change our life or our legacy except for us, and decide we are redefining our brands today. And that might be small. Maybe it's you're buying a new website domain, or maybe it means mending a broken relationship. Whatever it is, we have to make that decision to start moving. You know, they say that there are no shortcuts to any place worth going, and I agree wholeheartedly. Life is really hard, and you get a lot of curveballs thrown at you. But the better we can surround ourselves with support and pursue growth and start taking action outside of our fears, the more likely we are to reach those goals and to actually start making a difference. I learned at a really young age that life is fragile and finite. So I decided I wanted mine to matter in a really, really big way. I love this. In order to grow, we have to be willing to let our present and future be totally unlike our past. Because I have really good news. Your history is not your destiny. And I want to say that again, your history is not your destiny. So whatever your story may be right now, whether it's full of fears, insecurities, anxieties, even if it's secret, even if on the outside people don't know, but you're struggling with that on the inside, that is no longer your brand. You're free of that. No, instead, when we all go through those pain, we still get to define who we are going to be. So decide today that your brand is one of grit, one of strength, one of passion, and enduring joy. Decide today that your life matters in a significant way, and then let's all go start living like it. Thank you.